sunrise did it this lovely morning. It's not a Monday morning, I know, even though 29 degrees centigrade from Abuja, humidity. Look at that, who would have thought? 68%. So, yes, indeed, bright and early all the same. Welcome to the program. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Please, whoever has stolen our rain should give us back. It's supposed to be the rainy season. I hope you're getting some in your area because it's really hot in Abuja. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
Maukwe, be careful what you wish for, or be careful what you ask for. Who would have thought that? Exactly. Who would have thought after 75 years there'll be that kind of rain in Dubai? So please, careful what you wish for. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
They were the ones looking for trouble, weren't they? I mean, seeding
cloud sending, huh?
Yeah, cloud seeding. I mean, that's what they were doing. But how do we know that that didn't have any effect on our own weather here?
Wow.
We should ask the people, you know, who actually study the climate. But good morning once more and welcome.
I think it's going to be very interesting. Wait. Is that part not what the natives say? No, let me not go there this morning. Too early to look for the trouble.
Rainmakers, Our own local technology. Maybe they've just refined it.
So it's gone scientific?
Yes, it's gone scientific. There was always a science to it.
So they were even way ahead of... No.
There was always a science to it, believe it or not. It was just wrapped around in mysticism and, you know,
mysticism.
That's all that was happening. There was always a science to rainmaking. Always.
But even if, I mean, one thing that you can always say about that, one thing that you can always say about that, I mean, why are we able to predict when the weather forecast for like a year ahead, when it's going to rain and all of that? So, in some sense, I'll agree with Mark, but hey, about whether or not, how you manufacture it all of a sudden, count me out.
Well, who knows if you can predict the political forecast, the political climate here in this country, from the drama we see playing out yesterday to what we expect much later today from both parties, the courts also playing their roles. Goodness. So I guess what? It doesn't just rain now. I guess it pours. So who knows? All right, let's go ahead and take you through some of the papers right now.
We'll begin with Leadership newspaper. Today, APC-PDP crisis. Ganduje battles for survival. Damagun knows fate today. That is the big lead on the front page of Leadership here today. Look at the riders. Ganduje fingers NMPP in Kano crisis. Youths back national chairman as World Excos petition NJC. NEC will decide on Damagun today. PDP governors. So all eyes on those developments as they expected to unfold here today. And then look at Daily Trust. Governors Atiku, Wike test strength as PDP NEC meeting holds today. They're also following up on that big lead here. IU withdraw suit against party. NWC passes vote of confidence on Damagun. Not Central insists on completing IU's term. So look at those intrigues there. So I don't know if it gives you any pointers whatsoever, but somehow you know that, well, in case you don't, they've got a way of settling all of those things. Perhaps you should use the word settling advisedly this time. So those two focusing on what will play out there. But New Telegraph, court grants order suspending Ganduje as APC national chair. So definitely not heard the last of all of that drama within the political party right there, as the paper highlights. But Tribune, also similar narrative. Kano High Court affirms Ganduje's suspension. So then the riders restrains him from parading self as APC member. We won't comply with court order on Ganduje's suspension. APC vows. Tinubu is the target, says national chairman. APC, NWC drags Kano High Court judge before NJC. So, there you go. And, yeah, I know. That's politics for you right there this morning. But then you also do have more drama playing out in the politically speaking, because, I mean, some of the things that played out yesterday. Look at Nigerian News Direct. Alleged 80.2 billion naira fraud. EFCC faced resistance as Governor Ododo rescued Yaya Bello from arrest. This Nigeria, 84 billion naira alleged fraud. Ododo whisks Bello away to evade EFCC arrest. Standoff continues with counter-court orders between ex-Kogi governor anti-graft agency. So, and then above that list story, PDP NEC meeting, it's 0 hour. So, you see, pro-anti-Damagun forces flex muscles. NWC passes vote of confidence on national chairman as Wike, Atiku, others attend caucus meeting. So, all of that drama you'll get to see today. On the front page, that is. And then, speaking of which, look at the Daily Times. We're resolute in achieving economic security for all Nigerians. So economy has indeed been on the front burner for a while, and probably so. Vanguard, CBN not using reserves to defend Naira, ascribed to Kadusov. So quite a number of people had been talking about that is the case at the moment. But now look at this. Look at the writer. Ways and means no longer an issue. We made hard decisions quickly enough. Adds expectations of Nigerians often misplaced. Ouch. And then you see Nigeria's forex reserves dropped to $32 billion. So I know the questions are made then. Look, I think, we need to get up and read the story, because some of the immediate questions is how are expectations misplaced? What are these expectations in the first place? So the ways and means no longer an issue. Is it, say, the what? 30? Is it 33? Okay. I guess we'll leave it at that one with Vanguard newspaper. Daily Independent, Nigeria unattractive with high visa, $170 biometric fees, ascribed to experts. A look at the front page of The Guardian. Poor funding model, paucity stall $3.2 billion Eastern Rail project 3 years after. That's how The Guardian leads here this morning. And then we've got The Observer as well. Closed PFAs increase investments by 646 billion naira as pension assets hit 19.8 trillion naira in February.
Okay, so there you go, guys. Some of the issues sticking out there, we know, quite a number. Yeah, politics on the one hand, but economy is of equal importance.
Indeed, Chamberlain, because I was also going to highlight that issue around politics. You cannot ignore it. Highly infectious. So I'm going to say, don't just stay for the paper review, stay for the program, because that's certainly what we're sinking our teeth into in just a moment. But taking a look at the dailies, I mean, if a question has been bothering your mind as to what magic precisely is the CBN performing to make the Naira gain against the dollar, I'm sure a lot of people have been wondering, what precisely have they been doing? Well, the CBN governor is not shying away from that particular question. He's answering it at the IMF meeting happening in Washington, fiery Washington, D.C. And that's what the Vanguard has on the front page this morning. CBN not using reserves to defend Naira. That is very clear and unambiguous from the CBN governor. He says that question has been an elephant in some rooms, that he's going to be very clear about it, that they're not using the reserves, that it will be counterintuitive for them to do such a thing, and that if you're wondering why the reserves has gone down, it's because they're using that money to meet up some obligations. Has absolutely nothing to do with the Naira gaining. So, I don't know, you might not, don't pull out the second or the fourth page of your Vanguard newspaper. Don't let anyone pull it out for you. Read the details. It's extremely important. You certainly can guess that has been on my mind for a while. Not just my mind, Chamberlain's mind as well, and I dare say Ayo. But I think the lead question for a number of Nigerians will be, Mr. CBN Governor, sir, after the Naira has started gaining, well, it's not yet feeling the effect in the prices of goods and services. Well, I think the EFCC said they're going to be doing something about that, Bill, but How quickly they will be doing something about it is what is unclear. But people want to see this. They want to see their own money earned in this country, money earned in Naira, being able to do much more than it's been able to do in the last couple of days or weeks.
Yeah, but, yes, in many rooms, including Twitter X rooms, it's been a huge conversation there. But one other thing there, I think I'm trying to understand the context, probably before the show ends I will, where he says that rider, the expectation of Nigerians often misplaced. So you need to go in and find out, well, what does that actually mean? Because, I mean, anyway, there are two different things. He's not a politician.
Read it. Don't jump to conclusions. It might be that maybe we oftentimes expect magic, which is not out of place. Of course.
Isn't that what they all promise? Isn't that what politicians promise? So if politicians promise, say, I will do A, B, C, D, and E, Nigerians, of course, you have to hold them accountable to all of that. But again, don't forget, let's check the context.
He just said he's not a politician.
Of what he said. Yeah, he's not. And that's why the Minister of Power is different from him. Yeah,
I think the challenge that we have underscored that so many times on this program is communication. Well, we know not everyone is in the business of communication. Not everyone knows. We all have a good idea of what to say, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, we say some things that are seemingly ambiguous, and they are the behest of anyone to interpret it whichever way they want. So, Chamberlain, maybe the CBN may want to put out a word on that one. So communication. But I think I like Marquez's position on that. Just read the story. Don't just run away with the headlines. What does that mean? All the details are in there. But, guys, I'm very interested in what's happening on what the Guardian led the paper with this, the paper with this morning. Poor funding model, Poor City stalled $3.2 billion Eastern Rail project 3 years after. It's a very, very troubling one, on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. I remember the same story is what the Babangida government decided that it was going to take head on. The Third Mainland Bridge project, for instance, was stalled for many, many years, for a very, very long time, even called a white elephant project by a foreign journalist who was reporting Nigeria at some point. And I just stayed there for a very long time. And I think in an interview I read, the Babangida government said if he ever had opportunity to become president or head of state in Nigeria, he was going to make sure that that road was completed. And I am grateful that as a journalist, I was on that bridge on the day it was being commissioned. I think it was in 91 or 92. It's perhaps one of the #1 projects that I covered as a journalist working with a radio station at the time. And so is this going to be one of those things? This whole thing is about planning, I believe. And what we understand is that the federal government is just supposed to contribute about 15%. The rest is going to be secured by loan. Some of the information you need to read this paper or this story on the front page of The Guardian are right there on the front page. So who is supposed to do what? And then the communities are concerned about, they have certain concerns. The communities that this rail project passes through, they have their concerns. Are their concerns genuine? Most certainly. The federal government doesn't live there, it's the states. So what kind of conversation are we having? What kind of alliances and collaborations are we having with these communities to ensure that they can protect this particular interest? It's all in our favor. It's Nigeria. It doesn't belong to one administration or one president. It belongs to Nigeria. So someone owes us some explanation, don't you? Don't you think? But that's it, Chairman.
Well, speaking about explanation, we're going to have Mr. Fadana join us in a moment about what is going on in Kogi State. So law students, even practitioners, even laymen, about the role of the courts in all of this case against corruption. One judgment today, another judgment, conflicting. People are wondering, isn't there supposed to be some coordination? Why is there confusion? Should there be confusion when the law is there? Isn't it as clear? So all of that and more we'll be talking about in just a moment. Stay on with us.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate it with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Global deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Global, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
New beginnings are always colorful. When we celebrate the start of life's journey, we marry in colors. With our proudly Nigerian Dulux paints, now available in any color. Express your world however you want it. Visit a Dulux Color Center to get any color instantly. Dulux, let's color.
Senior executives face local macroeconomic turbulence and global geopolitical upheavals. Don't worry, Texam UK got your back. A transformative journey with Texam Strategies for Sustainable Organizational Success Program, April 24 to 25, 2024, in Lagos will position you and your organization for these challenges. Our interactive sessions, games, assessment, and peer-to-peer learning are unique with a great faculty led by John Peters, former chair, Association of MBAs and ex-prisoner of war, delivering actionable insights for you to navigate uncertainties and thrive. Pay 3,155,250 Naira by March 15th for your spot and enrich your leadership skills in resilience, innovation, and sustainable growth. Apply now via +44 7425 883 791 or exec@texam.co.uk. It's a strategic opportunity to win. Texam, insights that inspire, actions that change the world.
Cube is available in beef, chicken, jollof, and shrimp flavors at attractive prices of 100, 200, 500 Naira, along with Saver and Super Saver packs.
Terra Cube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
With Glovo, you order anything you want, and when you receive it, you celebrate it with your whole body. Because when that tasty grilled chicken is here, the weekend starts. The ingredients for your favorite recipe just in time. And when the cake arrives, the party is on. Because receiving anything on Global deserves a dance. Download the app, order anything you want, and track it minute by minute until it arrives. Global, order anything, we deliver in minutes.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. So many questions. What is going on in Kogi State? Well, the EFCC was trying to get a hold of him to answer to charges against him, allegations of fraud involving over 80. Guys, how much is that?
84 billion Naira.
Well, yeah.
Just in case you're thinking of wrapping it down to 80, there's 4 billion on top of it. Chimney, just imagine 4 billion. Anyways.
Sometimes when you read these things on paper, the gravity of it is, you know. But yesterday there was an attempt to arrest him. Yeah. Several things occurred. There was a judgment from the Kogi State High Court saying, nope, he can't be arrested. Then the EFCC said they got a judgment from a federal high court saying, proceed. And so many wondering what's going on with the courts. And then the dimension of the Kogi State governor, did they happen? What did he do? What does the law provide? So we have Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joining us this morning to weigh in on the matter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. So, Mr. Falana, we've seen your statement. We hope you can hear us, by the way. We've seen your statement about no court can stop the prosecution of the former governor. But then questions as to what then happens to that decision from the Kogi State High Court. Do they discountenance that because they thought their procedure shouldn't it be vacated before they proceed? Yes, we've seen your comment, but tell us about this latest twist now, what you think of it. Mr. Falana, can you hear us? If you can unmute, so you can go ahead and speak. Okay, so we'll try and get him back on that and see how considered. So the images you see there, the residence of former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. So questions as to, yes, they said, look, no court, provided certain things are done. If there are substantial cases of allegation established, the court can proceed to do that job. But the Kogi State High Court, what happens to that? And then the role that the Kogi State governor is said to have played in all of that. So many questions as to how the commission proceeds. The commission themselves say they will arraign him when? Thursday. That is a statement that the commission put out, that he'll be arraigned Thursday. So you have many scenarios as they are unfolding. So is he resisting what? Arrest and prosecution, or is he simply complying with the court orders? What about the policemen who were there as well? So some of those roles that they played, who is to do what? Because Mr. Falana also did right, saying the IGP should be seen to take stern measures against some of those policemen because he thinks that they did something against the law. How do we proceed from all of that? Should the IGP be speaking about now, or should he have spoken before now? Will he speak on the matter? Those are some of the issues that are bothering a lot of people's minds this morning.
So, before now, we had seen, former government officials or people who had occupied elective office try to evade arrest or, prevent themselves from being arrested. Interestingly, some of them have also come from Kogi State. I mean, we've seen scenarios whereby people just hold themselves up in their homes and they refuse to come out, and the operatives have no choice. We also saw in the case of former governor of Imo State, Rochas Okorocha, when the EFCC wanted to arrest him, they stopped at no level to get him out of the house. They went through the roof of the house, Chimilin, if you remember. But this scenario is a little different.
They couldn't go through the roof in this one.
It's very interesting because in this instance, it is policemen, the policemen who have been put in charge of who are guarding the former governor are the ones who have now prevented EFCC officials from effecting an arrest. The only other time we've seen this sort of scenario where security agents have prevented an arrest, of a prominent or a former government official is when the EFCC tried to arrest former DSS DG. And then the DSS officials who were attached to him said, no, this is not how we're going to proceed on this matter. There was a standoff between DSS officials and the EFCC officials. In this scenario now, there are big questions as to whether policemen, because don't forget, sometimes EFCC officials are also policemen. Can one set of policemen, stand against another set of policemen and say, you cannot effect an arrest? This is not in Kogi State, this is not in Lokoja, this is in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. All of the drama we witnessed yesterday was not in Lokoja. It happened right here in the Federal Capital Territory. So there have been big questions being asked as to what exactly transpired and, whether there was any there was any room for what transpired yesterday. And then at some point, because the EFCC officials themselves cordoned off the streets leading up to the governor's house. But we understand that when the current governor of Kogi State came in his own vehicle, the roads were open to let him through. I guess they were maybe everyone was just trying to be careful yesterday. Maybe that was what, because if EFCC really wanted to go through, there are a number of things that would have happened yesterday, Chamberlain, but it might not have happened without casualties. And maybe that was certainly not going to be needed. But this certainly doesn't. It says a lot about our country. It says a lot about our institutions. It says a lot about, the leaders that we have. The big questions really on every front, and that's what we're here to dig this morning. All we're doing right now is giving you a background as to what transpired yesterday.
All right, so let's take you through this report. Have a look.
Benghazi Street at Wuse Zone 4 in the Federal Capital Territory was today cordoned off by armed operatives of the EFCC who laid siege as early as 9 o'clock this morning to arrest the former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. Loyalists and aides of the former governor, including police officers, are seen mounting a resistance, forcing operatives of the EFCC to mount watch a few meters away. Moments later, more supporters and loyalists to Yahaya Bello arrive in show of solidarity. However, the former governor remains locked inside his residence. With the EFCC still mounting watch, hours later, the current governor of Kogi State, Usman Ododo, arrives to the cheer of supporters. Our attempts to speak with the EFCC team lead proved abortive, but some supporters of the former governor were quite assertive, alleging witch hunt.
It's clear already that the whole thing is politically motivated, as it is now. You can see it. Every normal human being can interpret what is happening now. The former governor just paid a visit to Mr. President just a day before yesterday. And today, this attack came. It's clear. You can read it. You can read within the line.
I am not sure those guys are from EFCC because there is a subsisting court order. I am sure they have regard for rule of law. And I don't think they are above the law. So I have my doubt. I have my reservation. Maybe they are not from EFCC.
Finally, Governor Usman Ododo departs the premises after about 5 hours of the EFCC officials' wait. A little while later, the EFCC officials also depart. It's been 7 hours since the operatives of the EFCC laid siege here at the premises of the former governor of Kogi State, Mr. Yahaya Bello. The EFCC operatives have now left the premises without the former governor in their custody. Meanwhile, there are several court documents that have emerged, while the High Court in Lokoja has issued a restraining order on the EFCC as it concerns arresting the former governor. A federal high court in Abuja has granted the EFCC an arrest warrant for the former governor preparatory to his arraignment.
All right, let's go to Mr. Femi Falana this morning. Good morning and thank you for joining us. So apologies, we hope we sorted all of that. So go ahead and tell us, because we hear in that report, some officials, they're saying they're not sure that those who came there were from EFCC. So what's your impression of what is going on, especially from the court having written that no court can stop the prosecution of the former governor?
Well, what happened yesterday was very unfortunate. And I'm very, very confident that the matter will be properly handled in line with the provisions of the law. I think about June or July last year, there was a clash between the officials of the EFCC and the State Security Service on Awolowo Road in Ikoyi, Lagos. And the Bola Tinubu administration made it clear that such clashes will not be allowed under this administration. I think what happened yesterday, the government will have to come out very clearly and make the point abundantly clear that the rule of law has to operate in Nigeria. And once a government has fidelity to the rule of law, police officers, state security officers cannot prevent the EFCC from carrying out its statutory functions, more so when a trial court giving that body a warrant to bring a suspect to court because a charge has been filed alleging the theft of over 80 billion naira. So it is in the interest of ex-governor Yahaya Bello to rush to court and defend his name. But once your immunity has expired as a governor, you cannot go to a court and have it extended indefinitely. That is the position of our law. The Supreme Court has made it clear that a federal high court cannot be prevented by state high court from trying a citizen because both courts have coordinate jurisdiction. So, in other words, Mr. Yahaya Bello's lawyer cannot go to the federal high court and say, our client will not come because there is an order of a Kogi State High Court that he should not be arrested or prosecuted. No. The Supreme Court made this point in the case of ex-governor Jikalu and the EFCC. In the case of Uwazorike and the FRN, that the order of a court of coordinate jurisdiction cannot prevent a trial court from putting any citizen on trial. Once a charge has been filed in the appropriate court, you cannot say you are not going to court. Or higher security officials to prevent either the EFCC or the police or any other agency from carrying out functions, statutory function.
All right, so having said that, isn't the procedure such that, because some of those in the report, the officials of the Kogi State government were saying they are not sure if they are from EFCC because there's a court judgment. So, yes, we heard what you said, but are they not supposed to vacate that order and then proceed, or are they supposed to disregard it and proceed with the arrest and prosecution of the former governor?
You know, Chamberlain, once a criminal court has ordered the arrest of any citizen or that any citizen be brought before it, if you have any objection to that order, you have to go to that court and say why you are not going to come. But you cannot hire people to prevent the enforcement of a valid and subsisting order of a court in Nigeria. Because the danger is that we are, we're having a policy that permits two types of legal systems, criminal justice systems, one for the poor and one for the rich. And that is against the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution.
So, I'm just looking at the pictures once more, and, oftentimes we've been told that, officials of the EFCC are drawn from the rank and file of the Nigeria police. Interestingly, yesterday, the Nigeria police were the people involved in actually stopping the effect of this arrest. What do you think should be, what conversation should be happening in this regard?
Well, I strongly believe that the Inspector General of Police will have to take certain actions. The first is that all the police officers involved in the macabre dance yesterday will have to be recalled and charged with obstruction of justice, because that was what happened yesterday. And no security officer in Nigeria has the power to frustrate the EFCC or any other lawful agency from performing its statutory functions. The Supreme Court has made the point that nobody in Nigeria, apart from the president and sitting governors, the sitting president and governors that enjoy immunity, any other citizen cannot be shielded by the police from prosecution. That is the law.
But this is not the first time.
Otherwise, we are violating the Constitution by shielding certain suspects from going to court to defend themselves, while other citizens are being railroaded to jail via the courts. You cannot be allowed. So I will expect the Inspector General of Police to ensure that the order of the Federal High Court and Mr. Bello Yahya be brought to the court for arraignment is carried out. Otherwise, it is going to be a dangerous precedent whereby terror suspects, armed robbery suspects, and go to court and say, I don't want to be tried. And you hire security people or thugs to prevent the EFCC or even the police from carrying out their statutory duties.
But this is not the first time we've seen this sort of injunctions being received by people who once occupied office. There's always been that famous perpetual injunction, which was obtained by former governor of Rivers State, which it's unclear if the EFCC ever obtained something to vacate that particular injunction. But that seemed to have set a precedence for what we now began to see much later by other people trying to get, court injunctions, prevent themselves from being arrested. How dangerous a precedent do you think that really set for us?
Frankly speaking, it is tantamount to judicial rascality for judges in Nigeria
Mr. Falana, I'm afraid you're muted. Mr. Falana, if you can hear me, you're muted. Kindly unmute, please.
What will have to happen here?
Thank you.
From the information at my disposal, one of the NGOs, one of the civil liberty organizations, has decided to petition the National Judicial Council in respect of this matter, because we can't go on like this, whereby a court will say, the case in Kogi is a civil case. The case before the federal court in Abuja is a criminal case. And what the court is saying, what the Supreme Court is saying, is that yes, you have the right to have your fundamental rights respected. But once there is reasonable suspicion that an offense has been committed, by virtue of Section 35 of the Constitution, you can be arrested and brought to court. So I believe that this should be the last time that this embarrassing situation will be allowed in this country. The government that has ordered, this government has directed all security agencies in the country to stop this type of clash, because it is unwarranted. It is unnecessary. You are asked to protect a former governor or a sitting governor, not to frustrate an agency of the government like the EFCC from performing its own functions. That is the position. So that is why we must.
Yeah, the other
Nigerian lawyers, the Nigerian Bar Association, the NJC, will have to rise to the occasion.
Okay.
So that our country will not be further exposed to ridicule.
Okay, so
before the Committee of Nations.
The other aspect is,
as it is the case now,
when you talk about obstruction of justice, the role that the current governor of Kogi State played, because there were images that suggested that he got in there. I mean, I think the statement from the commission too said they spirited the governor out of the premises, and as such, they frowned at any obstruction. Mr. Falana, can you hear me? Okay, so I'm asking, what do you think? I hope you can hear me, Mr. Falana. Are you still there?
Be brought to trial,
okay,
so that will serve as a deterrent to others who may want to frustrate the execution of the law. I mean, a sitting governor, a sitting president in Nigeria can be investigated. And that is the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Fawaimi and the Inspector General of Police.
All right.
It cannot be done because of Section 305 of the Constitution. So is that you cannot arrest and prosecute them. But the Supreme Court has said in that case that the investigation must be concluded. Either the report is sent to the House of Assembly or the National Assembly, as the case may be, or the agency will keep the report. When the man completes his term of office, then you can file a charge against him. And the Supreme Court warned in that case that certain evidence may be destroyed if investigation is not conducted. In this case, while Mr. Yaya Bello was in office, the investigation was conducted. The investigation was conducted in this case. And as soon as he left office, by the time his immunity expired by a fluxion of time, the EFCC filed a charge. A charge had been filed. His name was then added, and the court consequently made an order that he be brought to court for arraignment. That has to be done.
So, Mr. Falana,
will have to make it.
Tell us then, what happens to Kogi State governor if he spirited the governor out of that premises? Is that tantamount to obstruction of justice? Since he's got immunity, what can happen to him? Can you hear me, Mr. Falana? I'm asking the role that the Kogi State governor, the current governor, is said to have played. If he spirited the former governor out of the premises, is that tantamount to obstruction of justice? And since he's got immunity, what can happen in that case?
Chamberlain, I didn't hear that.
So the role of the current governor of Kogi State, if he was the one that took the former governor out of the place while he was trying to be arrested, is that tantamount to obstruction of justice? He's got immunity. What happens to him?
Please, can you come again? I didn't quite hear that question.
Okay, so I'm talking about the role that the Kogi governor played. Was he obstructing justice and his immunity cannot be waived? So what happens in that area, in that regard?
As far as this matter is concerned, a charge is pending in the Federal High Court. The court has made an order that Mr. Yaya Bello be brought to court. I am very confident that the court will insist that the suspect be arraigned in court. And if his lawyers, if Mr. Bello has any objection to that order, he is perfectly in order to approach the Federal High Court and to convince the court why it should not be tried for allegedly diverting the sum of 80 billion naira from the coffers of a poor state like Kogi. This is a very simple and straightforward matter. He ran away yesterday, but he cannot run away forever.
I'm not sure that the question has been answered, Mr. Falana. The question of, I don't know if you can hear me, Mr. Falana. The question of whether or not, what happens to the sitting governor if indeed he was the one that took the former governor out of his residence for him to avoid the arrest by the EFCC? What happens to that particular individual?
Well, because the sitting governor currently enjoys immunity under the Constitution, not much can be done to him for now. But again, I'm taking a dominant part in the obstruction of justice that occurred in Abuja yesterday. There is no statute of limitation with respect to that offense. The EFCC will have to conduct an investigation as regards what happened yesterday. And at the appropriate time, the sitting governor, once he loses his immunity, and be charged. But as I've said, he used certain agents who do not enjoy immunity, unfortunately for them. All the security officers involved in colluding, all the security officers that colluded with the sitting governor to prevent the EFCC from arresting a criminal suspect can be charged right away with obstruction of justice so that this ugly incident will not repeat itself.
Well, one of the challenges that one might also raise from there is the kind of communication that has gone out about this particular matter. As you said, on the one hand, it's a civil case. On the other hand, is a criminal case. And there are some of those people at the venue yesterday, at that house yesterday, saying that the EFCC was overruling or overturning a court decision when it went and besieged the house of the former governor right there. Of course, many of them knew of a subsisting order, but they didn't know the circumstances of both. And of course, whatever rhetoric is put out is what people go with. Now, in that light, what should the communication be going forward? And who should be putting this out so that people have a good understanding of the circumstances around this particular case?
Okay. What happened here was that the former governor approached the Kogi State High Court that my fundamental right to liberty should not be tampered with by the EFCC. No court, and the court in Kogi could not have said that if there is reasonable suspicion that an offense has been committed, the suspect should not be charged. Now, EFCC went to that house armed with an order of the Federal High Court, which is pending, which is subsisting, valid order. The EFCC was directed by the Federal High Court, go and bring the suspect for the purpose of his arraignment. Again, you will recall last year, when a former governor, I think Governor Okorocha, resisted arrest, the EFCC broke into the house in line with the provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act and took him out and arraigned him in court. I am very, very confident that in this case, once the EFCC has been directed by the Federal High Court to bring Mr. Bello to court, that order, unless it is vacated, either by the Federal High Court or the Court of Appeal, the order will have to be complied with. And I'm saying, in not less than 10 cases, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court dealt with this situation. And all the decisions are to the effect that no court can turn any citizen into an outlaw. In fact, the court is saying, how dare you to come to court and say, I don't want to be prosecuted. if there is reasonable suspicion that an offense has been committed. In this case, a charge has been filed in court alleging the criminal diversion of over 80 billion naira. That charge is pending. And the court has said, it's on this charge. And the processes are attached. I am ordering you to go and bring this suspect for arraignment.
So, just a quick one.
For any high court
to
disregard the judgments of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal on this matter, it's a very serious matter that will have to be dealt with. Otherwise,
now, that brings to the issue. Now, I'm sure you're aware of an upcoming Justice Sector Reform Summit towards the end of this month. In what way do you see that upcoming Justice Sector Reform Summit addressing the issues that have been raised directly?
No, you see, we cannot continue to reform the law where the standard provisions of the law have been disregarded by a section of the community, by members of the ruling class. It is not a general problem in Nigeria. And you know, this is the painful aspect of it. If a common person is involved in a crime, the police, State Security Service, EFCC and the rest of them will pounce on the person, will pounce on him. But you see, when a big man is involved, you will write a polite letter. Please, you are invited to our office to be interviewed by so, and so. And so what do rich people do? What do? They will take that letter to the court. Oh, that my fundamental rights to liberty is going to be infringed upon. So can you restrain the agency that has invited me? But I am saying the Supreme Court and the courts of appeal have described such conduct as illegal and unconstitutional, and that every suspect must be taken to the appropriate court in Nigeria. If an order is made against you by a criminal court, you don't go to another court to invalidate the order because they are of coordinate jurisdiction. What you do is to approach that court and say, my lord, for this reason and for that reason, the order made against me should be set aside. So we don't need any reform here.
Well, Mr. Falano,
the provisions of the
this one question
Constitution are very clear.
Yeah. This one question it borders on whether or not it is going to happen. It's today that the EFCC is supposed to arraign Mr. Bello. On the one hand, do you see him appearing in court today? On the other hand, if he does not appear, just a second. On the other hand, if he does not appear in court today, what are the consequences?
I will be completely flabbergasted if Mr. Yaya Bello is not producing court today. The system cannot allow it. But if for any reason it's not producing court today, I am reasonably sure that the court will grant an adjournment and reiterate this order to have him produced. It's as simple as that. Nobody in Nigeria has ever successfully prevented his arraignment before the court of competent jurisdiction. And I'm talking of cases that have been decided in this area. So it's not a new area. You don't need any reform. It is to enforce the provisions of the law and the orders of the court on this matter.
Now, well, Mr. Falano, you spoke about something earlier about the officers of the law that were on both sides of the divide. Mark raised that question with you earlier. What should be the SOP? What should be the MO for that kind of situation. On the one hand, we have orderlies with the former governor. We have orderlies, security details with the governor. And we have security details, of course, who came to enforce a court order. What are the dynamics there? Because at the end of the day, it seems like we're just putting these guys, the security agents, at loggerheads. They are there, each one of them, to do their jobs. So what should be the MO here? For the one hand, the orderlies with the former governor, the security detail of the governor, and the security agencies who came to effect a court order.
Well, for me, I think the leadership of the EFCC must be commended for restraining its officers from employing force to carry out the order of the court. It will have been in order. There was an incident in America where a criminal suspect resisted arrest. The security agency set fire on the house. Yes. And of course, the criminal had to run out and was arrested. In Nigeria, under the administration of Criminal Justice Act, once a criminal suspect is straight to a house, security agencies, even the police and others, are empowered by law to invade the house and bring him out, take him to court. In this case, the officers that colluded with the sitting governor to resist, to prevent the arrest of Mr. Yaya Bello, as I said earlier, have committed an offense. It is called obstruction of justice. Those officers are liable to be arrested and prosecuted. And that has to be done so that the security agencies in Nigeria will know that we are not operating in a banana republic. This is a country that loudly proclaims to operate under the rule of law. There's no provision for this type of rascality that occurred yesterday. Again, as I said, the EFCC deserves commendation for not engaging in a physical combat with the police officers that prevented the arrest. Otherwise, it will have been a different matter entirely.
All right, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, Business Morning on Sunrise. It will be up next on the hour. Stay on with us.
Slap him.
And it's the second to the last trading day of this week. Good morning, good evening, wherever the world you might be watching from. It's Business Morning, coming to you live from Channels HQ right here in Lagos. Let's get to the top stories that set your agenda now, starting with the oil market. We're seeing some kind of bounce there with oil prices this morning. Still below that $90 level. That's for Brent, $87.39 a barrel, up 0.11% this morning. So we're seeing a lot of volatility right now in the oil market. WTI crude, though, that's up about 2 cents this morning, $82.71 a barrel, losing that $85 level. That's for WTI. Let's get a check on the crypto market. Now we see Bitcoin stock around that $61,000 level. They taught 60,000 yesterday. It's down 3.88%. We're seeing pullbacks across board right now. Ethereum losing that $3,000 mark, 3.51% down. BNB is down marginally, 0.08% this morning. So we're seeing red right there in the crypto market this morning. Let's get to some other stories now. We see the Central Bank of Nigeria has announced a reduction in the loan-to-deposit ratio for banks from 65% to 50% as part of its current monetary tightening strategy. This move, outlined in the statement, reflects the CBN's aim to align with a more contractionary policy stance. The adjustment in the LDR is a measure of a bank's liquidity and impacts the ability of the bank to extend credit to businesses and individuals from depositors' funds. By lowering the ratio, the CBN aims to moderate lending activities while promoting sound risk management practices within the banking sector. The Apex Bank says it will monitor compliance and adjust policies when necessary. Meanwhile, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Olaimi Cardoso, has been reacting to the views that the regulator's intervention in the foreign exchange market is responsible for the depletion of the country's foreign reserve. Mr. Cardoso, speaking at the session of the ongoing IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, D.C., says the CBN is working on policies to support the market and ensure stability of the exchange rate. Take a listen.
What you've seen with respect to the shifts in our reserves is the shifts that you find in any country's reserve situation, where, for example, debts are due and certain payments need to be made. They are made because that is also part of keeping your credibility intact. And other times, money comes in and, you know, takes it up again. And if you watch in the next couple of days, I think between yesterday and today, we had about 600 million US that came into the reserves account. So I wouldn't let people get too excited about this thing. All I will say is that we are looking towards ensuring that we have a market that operates on its own, willing buyer, willing seller, and price discovery. That's where we're going to. The shifts you've seen in our reserves has really, you know, little or nothing to do with defending any naira, and that's certainly not our objective.
Central Bank Governor there clarifying on matters there about the FX market. But we'll see to our first discussion now, the impact of higher energy prices. That's quite evident in the headline inflation for March, but there seems to be hope for lower diesel prices as the Dangote Petroleum Refinery slashed the price of diesel by 16% to 1,000 naira per litre from about 1,200 naira per litre. Joining us now is Jide Pratt, COO Iona Nigeria, and a country pilot manager at TradeGrid. Joining me right here in the studio. Great to have you. Good morning.
Same here. Thanks, Vladi.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen the inflation numbers from food inflation hitting a new high of about 40%. Headline inflation also new high for that too. Last time we saw that was, I think, 1997 or so. But energy prices do feed into, you know, these numbers we're seeing here. And looking at, you know, Dangote slashing this price, talk to me about how he's able to achieve this price. And I guess this is not market forces at work. Price determination.
So I think we need to put things in perspective. Why is the Dangote refinery able to cut down prices by as much as 100 naira? You must look at it that economies of scale come into the refinery. Anybody that is able to refine 19 million liters of gas oil on a daily basis can shape the market. There's no two ways around that. However, what he's going to do, or what the refinery is going to do, is have to take hedging options. They're buying crude. But every time they buy crude and they blend that into gas oil, they're trying to achieve an ex-refinery price that covers the cost of their operations. So assume that in trading, you have what you call a one-book scenario. You keep on trading and you keep on achieving a weighted average cost. I believe the Dangote refinery is getting some efficiency levels based on volume, based on the new refinery in terms of efficiencies. And that is why they're able to, for want of a better way, translate that to the market. Do I believe they will do this going forward? In the short run, yes. In the long run, the prices will continue to adjust based on the fact that there's a crude input. And don't forget, he's trying to achieve an ex-refinery price that gives him, let me say, some margins. And then they'll be able to play in this market continuously, in my opinion.
Right, and definitely we've seen the naira, you know, strengthen, you know, the first quarter of 2024. How much of that is playing into how much the Dangote refinery can actually sell, you know, diesel to the market at this time? And I'm wondering, is there a risk that he cannot achieve this price if the naira weakens again?
So the answer to that immediate question is yes. How positive has this been? It's been massive. So what it is that there are two factors that will convert into a landed cost, or shall I say an ex-refinery price: the cost of your crude and your exchange rate. Just to dwell on that, I do believe that if the government is selling crude to the Dangote refinery in naira, it takes out that, let me say, FX uncertainty. However, back to your statement, if it does go up and he still has a crude input, which is based on FX, then the exchange rate will obviously take the prices back up. There's no two ways around it. There's going to be a balancing act to be able to achieve the numbers they want. But don't forget, ex-refinery for him is really, really key, because he must be able to get that price at a price where when they add their margins, it translates to what you call ex-depot. Ex-depot would obviously add their margins before it gets to what you call the retail play at the retail outlets. So that's how it works technically.
And we're seeing this, play out for diesel, at this time. But we know PMS, that's still hitting at the pockets of, the average consumer at this time. Talk to me about how we can actually get these energy prices down in the short to medium term.
Okay, so short term, two things, and we've talked about the efficiency of the refinery. But you see, in trading, you need to just hedge. You're going to have to place your bet on a tomorrow price that you don't see today. So to hedge, you're going to take lots when it comes to gas oil. And let's stick to gas oil first. So it means that I want to take a 60-day pricing, but I want to take it today because of where I think the market is going. I can do that at the Dangote refinery because take it or leave it. I'm big enough to push the market. I'm big enough to guide the market, and we've talked about the efficiencies. So he's going to take forward positions on gasoline and gas oil. Right now, we're still doing the gas oil play. I think he's going to do the same for jet. But you see, once you can take those, what you can't control is the FX. I must say Mr. Cardozo seems to be doing a very good job, and he's gotten it right. So sustainability, if he can do this long term, then it means that those trading distillates or those refining can take more forward positions. Look at things like the FMDQ. If I want to take a hedge on FX, I can go to the FMDQ. The FMDQ guarantees a pricing for tomorrow again. It's like taking a hedge again. But everything is based on availability. FPIs seem to be going up. If they can go up on a consistent basis, then it makes it easier for distillate traders. It makes it easier for the refinery to take short, medium, and long-term hedges based on what happens in the market. It's doable, in my opinion.
And definitely, we've heard talks about, some kind of monopoly, happening here. And looking at, consumers, struggling, at this time. Going ahead, we're expecting inflation to peak, at some point. But the issues are still there. The structural issues, are still there. But we're hoping that it actually comes down. But is there a risk that, that at some point, Nigerians might not be able to enjoy lower energy prices going forward, knowing fully well that this is one man controlling the market?
So two things. And I think the FCCPC and the NMDPRA, they need to do their jobs. If they feel that there's a price gouging effect, but that risk is always there. But in my opinion, I don't set up a refinery to take undue advantage of the market. I set up a refinery by scale to be able to make sustained margins and profit over a long period of time. He has debts to pay. So what he's going to do is try and look at the market and say, okay, how much of this can I push? Don't forget, vessels will load. He'll make some margins in terms of trading, using ice and all that. But trucks will also load from the gantry. So for me, if, number one, the government is able to give him crude in Naira, and meet the domestic crude supply obligations in giving him crude, then we can sit down and have conversations around the fact that what is going into local should have, and not no margins, but should have deemed margin expectations. Because don't forget, he's still selling to sub-Saharan Africa through vessels, through barges. But what is local? There must be a way of ensuring that the Dangote refinery, modular refineries, all get their crude as at when due. That now shifts the dynamics in terms of monopoly. So regionally, where you have different, modular refineries, they're also able to take positions around those regions so that prices begin to drop, as long as other factors of crude oil and exchange rates stay, let me say, constant.
Right, and talking about prices of crude oil, we're seeing WTI, sitting about $82 per barrel from about $85. Over the weekend, every trader and investor was expecting some kind of, tension, when it comes to the oil market. See, some already calling for $150, Brent. But this time, it seems the risk premium, that's been put aside, at this time. But talk to me about how, what we're seeing, playing out in the global oil market, how that impacts, this refinery, knowing that Dangote is, buying WTI.
Absolutely. So, crude oil always has triggers. every distillate has triggers. So what is happening around Iran is the trigger at this point. So immediately after the drone strikes on the, the embassy in Syria, you notice that there was an immediate upshoot in terms of prices. However, since the retaliation, quote unquote, from Israel hasn't happened, and conversations around it are going on, then it seems there's some more, let me say, some safety expectations, and then prices are dimming back into where they need to be. However, if things escalate, Ladi, it goes without saying, premiums will go up. War risk in terms of freight and everything will go off. The Houthi situation around vessels has not been totally solved. So once those happen, then what you see is we're going back to a case where margins will be escalated, tensions will be escalated, and crude oil prices will go up. That will lead to higher prices anyhow we look at it.
And looking at the technicals at this time, if WTI goes below that $82 level, what do you see the price next?
You know, I always say this, I never use WTI or crude as an impact for derivatives. So it will be good to see where ICE gas oils go. Where does ICE gas oil go? If it goes down, I mean, top of my head today, you're looking at about $9.50 in terms of landing costs. And this is just a guesstimate based on what I know. Now, if those go up, then you're pushing towards 1,000. If those go lower, then you're moving towards 900 or 800 level. And I'm talking specifically to gas oil.
Right, so definitely there is hope that we can have low energy prices, you know, in Nigeria at some point, you know, with war seen playing out.
Yeah,
that's what the man on the street wants to know.
We've always seen playing out, Laddie, yes. There's no two ways about that. But always remember, if this indices change, the same way it goes south could be the same way it goes north. Whoever manages the energy space for Nigeria, the president, they just need to sit down and keep on thinking about what are the positives we can take. On the short run first, medium term next, and then long term.
All right, let's look at the Seplat ExxonMobil deal. We did hear the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources say that Nigeria is losing over 400,000 barrels per day because this deal, you know, has not been, you know, completed yet. Talk to us about this and why it's stalling.
So there's a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to oil and gas in Nigeria. So let's leave what has happened in the past. The question is this. There was an executive order, 40, I believe, which the president signed into law. So what are some of the things that he's trying to do? If you notice, he's trying to shut down, or shall I say, shorten contract cycles from basically 36 to 48 months to 6 months. Those are global standards. So what it means is that if the NMDPRA, for instance, you need NMDPRA or NUPRC, you need an approval, they're supposed to get back to you within 14 days. In the event that they do, then it's deemed to be that they've given you approval. That's number one. If you also look at the contract sums that we're talking about now, prior to this, I think we were at levels of $500,000. Now that's been moved to 10 million. So it means that before you need to go back to seek approvals, it's a higher threshold. I think things like that will help prevent the mistakes that have happened with the Seplat deal. Community issues, all these have been left, in my opinion, for way too long. Executive Order 40 tries to address some of these things. But you see, it's not just having an executive order. If those are implemented along the lines that they need to be implemented, then what you see is that there will be some traction. But for me, it's really down to the Minister of Petroleum Resources. He needs to sit down and say, guys, I need this done. What are the things that are blocking this deal? Because it's okay to say how much we've lost. The question is that how much do we not need to lose between today, the next 30 days, the next 60 days, and the next 180 days? I'm sorry, he needs to sort that out. But I think the Executive Order 40 gives a framework to be able to solve some of these anomalies.
So, in your opinion, where do you see this deal actually?
In my opinion, if he can't push this to happen within the next 6 months, then we have a major problem.
Right. So more losses, you know, when it comes to barrels, and we're trying to get our output, you know, out at this time. Talk to me about 2024. What are you seeing for Nigeria's energy market?
Okay, so let's be clear about one thing. We've gotten refining, quote and unquote, right. What it is now is that if crude oil prices continue to stay along the levels it is. Don't forget, budget to now, we have we have a gain.
Right.
But what we need to do is that if we're still getting to, you notice that Angola has Libya has taken over in terms of barrels being produced. So what do we need to do? We still need to push to 1.7 million little barrels a day. I think that if we do that on a sustainable basis, what it is that you get some gains in terms of volumes, but you also get some gains in terms of margin. The outlook for me is good. But we need to get beyond policies. We need to get beyond statements and just do our jobs. If we get this, then the outlook for me is extremely good. It gives us something to build on till end of 2024, and even a better platform to build into 2025.
Yeah, because we know a lot of people have left diesel. You know, ever since prices escalated, we've seen them actually drop to PMS, even though we know PMS, you know, is still really expensive. But we do hope for the best. Yeah. Thank you so much. Great having you. Jide Pratt, COO, Iona Nigeria, and Country Pilot Manager, Trade Grid. Thank you so much. Laddie. All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we analyze some other issues in the commodities market space. That's in a moment. To stay with us.
Now this is more like it, right? We want the best quality ingredients when we cook. But when it comes to salt, we care less. We say salt is salt. Well, I care about my salt. It goes into my food and my body. So I use Dangote salt. Dangote salt is high-quality salt that is refined and iodized to give great taste to my meals and also to support my family's health and well-being. It's time to care about your salt.
All right, let's get a check on the commodities market now. We have Dumebi Oluwole now. She's joining us right here in the studio. Senior Associate, Financial Derivatives Company. Great to have you,
Thank you so much.
I'm sure you heard the previous conversation.
Yes.
It's all about diesel and how much the refinery is getting out at 1,000 naira per liter.
Yes.
You know, this time, definitely this will have, you know, impact, you know, when it comes to the commodities market.
Yeah.
But it is still expensive.
From where we're coming from.
Right.
Yeah, you're very right about that. But I think it's best we look at what is happening now compared to what has been happening, let's say, about 6 months ago. So we've seen a significant increase in, you know, energy prices, to be very fair. And that has affected, you know, logistics costs, the transportation of food items, and that has now fed into food prices and contributed significantly to inflation. So what this means now is that we're getting diesel prices cheaper, right? And there's an increase in supply. The expectation now is that if this continues, the price of diesel could probably reduce even further if the supply is ample. And, you know, this would start feeding into transportation costs, logistics costs, and possibly food items, because most of the trucks, or practically all the trucks that bring food from, you know, other states into states like Lagos are diesel run. So the expectation is that if the cost of diesel is reduced, there are chances that, you know, this will also feed into prices. But remember the conversation we had on Tuesday where I explained to you the lag effect. All of these things does take time. So today you might be seeing diesel prices trading at 1,000, you know, for 1,000 naira per liter, and you still go to the market. That tomato that you were buying, you know, for maybe 60,000 naira per basket is still 60,000 naira per basket. It hasn't come down, and you just saw that truck coming from Lagos State and coming from maybe a Niger State into Lagos, and you're wondering why is this not happening? Yeah, and you probably also the truck, you know, getting refilled. I saw you. Why have you not, you know? So the thing is, it does take time. It does take time for all of this to translate into lower commodity prices. And remember, diesel is just one function that's feeding into the price of food items. There are other things to consider. Remember that farmers are still struggling with a lot of insecurity that is affecting them producing. The planting season is also coming. It's also, you know, also in lieu, and that is also feeding into commodity prices. Although there are positives happening with the naira. Well, I mean, the naira depreciated yesterday, but regardless, over the past few weeks, we've seen the naira on a positive trend, and that as well has also fed into prices. But still, point is, all of these things will take time to translate into a significant decline in food prices. We might see prices slow, just like what we saw in the month-on-month inflation for March that I explained to you on Tuesday. Yeah, so we might see some, like trickle down in prices, but it wouldn't be so significant.
It's quite interesting, when you hear, about, when you heard about diesel prices, going up. We saw the prices, of commodities move up, immediately, and we didn't see that lag. When it comes to when other prices actually come down. So I'm wondering, when it comes to consumer protection, at this time, do we force the sellers to say, you know what, we know maybe diesel prices have risen, at this time, but there has to be a lag effect before your price goes up.
I mean, if those mechanisms were able to be in place, the expectation is that they should be, because that's where social safety nets and consumer protection, like you rightly said, comes into play. And this is where, for instance, in developed economies, when price shocks like that are supposed to happen, everyone is aware. So the consumer knows that in the next few days, the price of this particular item is going to increase.
Not immediately.
Not immediately. So that's the kind of process or progress that we need when it comes to commodities markets in Nigeria. So that things to avoid, sellers taking advantage of the, sharp increase where you see artificial scarcity, you see hoarding. You go to the market today, they're selling 1, 2 just because they know that, Naira has depreciated, or they want to, increase their price. And meanwhile, they've had that old stock and they're just trying to, make abnormal profits. But the thing is, like you rightly said, some level of consumer protection is supposed to be in place where these price increases either happen staggeredly or they happen with enough sensitization that people are aware that in the next few days, price of this commodity is going to increase. Now, what that is supposed to hedge against is panic buying. And the expectation is that these announcements or price shocks, however way they are going to happen, the government will do their due diligence to ensure that people are not scared that, by that time, there won't be any products in the market. Everything is going, so people obviously will take their time to increase. So this happens a lot of times in a period of 2 weeks, months even, for people to take advantage of it and get enough stock in place before the price increases now happen. The difference is that in a developing market like Nigeria, where businesses often do fight for themselves, it will obviously take time for these things to eventually translate.
We need someone to fight for the consumers at this time, because how much can the average consumer actually take at this time? Well, let's look at the CBN right now. We did hear the governor actually say it's not the foreign reserves that are used to defend, the Naira. We saw the report from Bloomberg showing the relationship between the foreign reserves depletion and the Naira strengthening.
Yes.
They're moving in the same, direction at this time. And I'm wondering, when the Naira was, depreciating, before, we did see foreign reserves actually decline. So what's the difference? Yeah.
That's exactly, I think, one of the things that we just need to take a few steps back to really analyze. The thing is, in times of economic crisis, it is expected that countries do draw down from their reserves to stabilize their currency, simply because markets do bet against the currencies in times of economic crisis. So what that period of support or intervention is supposed to do is stabilize the currency so much that these negative shocks are not too much, so that the investors that we want to bring in, the portfolio investors, the FDI investors, are able to bring their money in, and they do know that to some level, right, the monetary policy authorities are able to do the right things to keep the currency at a certain level, right, before their funds now come into support. And then the government is able to, boost their reserves back. And if you notice, because again, I always like to use the Asia 1997 crisis to explain things like this. A lot of these countries did the exact same thing, even with the support of the IMF, right? So this is not new. But I guess the reason why Bloomberg is flagging this now is because of the rate of depletion in the foreign reserves. Depleting your reserves during economic crisis is not wrong, right? But because of the rate of the decline in foreign reserves and the slow rate of increase in our export earnings, because right now it's somewhat like, okay, we're seeing oil production decline. So what that means is our export earnings from oil is going to decline. We're not producing enough cocoa to take advantage of the increase in cocoa prices globally. So what that means, again, is export or dollar earnings from another significant commodity might not be so much to boost, the reserves back up. So what's going to happen now? But the thing is, let's also understand Nigeria is in a state of an economic crisis, and the monetary policy authorities are doing what they can to solve this problem. So they need to keep the currency at a certain level. So these investors that we need to bring in will be able to bring in the capital that we need to further support the reserves. So while I understand the sentiments, I do not think it is something to panic about.
But that kind of sentiment and that kind of report by Bloomberg can cause panic.
I mean, not to the people that understand the fundamentals of the market.
Okay.
To a layman, it does look like, oh my God, our reserves are being blown up. But that's not really the case. We have to look at the economies that are backing this up. And there is no need for any panic. What is happening is not wrong. It's not new. These things happen even to the biggest economies globally. And during times of economic... I mean, if it was such a big deal, the IMF did release a report. It would have been mentioned and mentioned in a very bad light. But that wasn't the case. So this is because things like this do need to happen in times of economic crisis.
But what do you see the foreign reserves in the short to medium term?
I mean, in the short to medium term, obviously, this trend will still likely continue, but not by, I mean, now that it has been flagged. And remember, you see, the Naira did depreciate. So what this means, it did affect market sentiment. And for the CBN to obviously anchor market sentiments positively, because there's such a thing as exchange rate expectations. And if they do expect the Naira to keep falling, foreign portfolio investors will be very cautious, and they wouldn't want to bring in funds. So obviously, the CBN has to now be cautious with this, come out with a statement and say, explain, be very transparent about what they are doing with the reserves, why the reserves are depleting, what measures they are putting in place to increase it even further. And this is where fiscal and monetary policy consolidation come into play. Fiscal authorities obviously have to do their part to ensure that the key sources of revenue for the country are actually increasing. Things like oil theft and vandalism, we should not even be talking about it anymore, because that is a key revenue for Nigeria. We cannot sideline that anymore. Whether or not we're trying to diversify the economy, we need to remember that right now the country is still very dependent on oil, and oil prices are high. So meaning that Nigeria should be benefiting from that. But that's really not the case, at least in dollar terms. In Naira terms, we've been seeing FAC increasing significantly to tell you that, okay, yes, in Naira terms, we're making a lot more. But in dollar terms, we're not. And this is where fiscal authority needs to come in. All the pressure can't keep going to the monetary policy authorities. Right. And I'm not an advocate for the CBN, but we cannot... We can't keep pointing fingers and then when they're trying to do the right things here in terms of adjusting and actually being on the path of orthodoxy.
So with this new law for the foreign reserves, you think it might stay this way?
I do think so. I do think so for the time being.
Right.
For the time being. But then again, even if it does, I don't think it will go past 32.
All right, we'll keep tracking.
We'll keep watching
the reserves.
Exactly.
At this point. Yes. Thank you so much, Dumebi Oluwole. It was great having your perspective.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, so yeah, that's it, and definitely is the second to last trading day of the week. We did see the bull make an appearance for the local boss. That was yesterday. We're going to see if we're going to get another appearance today, and maybe for the final trading day tomorrow. So that's how it's playing out for today. That's how money is performing, and we'll get more updates later on Business Incorporated to see how the global markets actually playing out. Thank you for watching. I'm Lade Williams. I have things back over now to the Sunrise Daily team.
The Dangote Petroleum Refinery is going to be the largest single-train petroleum refinery in the world. Dangote Industries have enormous confidence in the potential of Nigeria. Africa is like an unexplored gold mine. We know there is huge opportunities here.
What makes this project different than others is for sure the size. This project is transformation for the country and for the continent, I would say.
The Dangote fertilizer plant will transform the agricultural sector. We go for it will help to create employment and to reduce the massive demand on foreign imports. It's going to have a major impact on the lives of the Africans. It's a moment of great pride.
deliberated on critical issues relating to the party and resolved as follows. 1, that all organs of the party should continue to work in the interest of the unity, stability, and growth of the party. 2, the caucus received and approved the timetable for the party congresses. The local government, the ward, and the state congresses as they become ready for. And it is going to be between June and August 2024. The caucus approved that the NWC should reconstitute the disciplinary and reconciliation committees of the party. These are standing committees of the party that we need to rejig in proceeding with all our issues in the party. Umar Damagu continues to be the acting national chairman of the party until the next meeting of NEC after tomorrow's NEC meeting. And the advice on that is this. The party considered that it is important to have more consultation on that issue, and that what we're going to live with is that we as a party must be united, and those issues are not such as to divide us, knowing that we are going to follow our constitution in line with any succession plan, having regard to the circumstances we find ourselves.
All right, so that and more what we'll be talking about this morning, and we've got Mr. Humphrey Abba here with us in the studios. He is a former Minister of Interior, former Minister of Police Affairs, former Minister of Trade and Investment, is a legal practitioner, and now a chairmanship aspirant for the People's Democratic Party. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Quite a lot unfolding in the party. Yeah. Some thorny issues, one of which is the chairmanship position. So you heard Mr. Debo Lugmagbade, the spokesperson of the party, reading out some of the decisions that have been taken ahead of your NEC meeting. So this challenge that your party faces, I know that at the end of the day, parties have a way of working it out, but the build-up, it does raise a lot of concern. How concerned are you? You think this is just like, you can sort this out yourselves easily?
Thank you. Every party member should be concerned about the crisis that is building up. Like you said, it has come with a lot of tension, and it creates room for camps to be built and all of that, which is unhealthy. But again, in party politics, you expect that there are different groups, different opinions, but eventually it will crystallize where democracy takes its toll, where democracy is allowed to express itself. Then it will crystallize in the final decision that might help to build a party and make it stronger.
So what is your opinion about this rift within the party? Because we know it stems from the last elections when the former VP got the ticket and the former governor of Rivers State lost out on the ticket.
My opinion is that it is important to address that rift frontally. And the way to address that rift is to have a genuine reconciliation. Genuine reconciliation. And in party politics, you are bound to have people with differentials in opinion. But at the end of the contest, we must have the ability to genuinely reconcile party members and get them to work together.
You said genuine a number of times. It suggests that whatever else has happened was not genuine.
I don't think there has been reconciliation that have been acceptable to both sides.
What would the difference be in this one?
Maybe in the people that will bring them together to settle them, to be able to tell them the truth and say, okay, you, this is it, this is the path to toe, this is the constitutional provisions of the party, follow it and do what the party wants you to do. So there must be, like we have the Board of Trustees, which is made up of our eminent elders and leaders. Mm-hmm. I am of the view that the Board of Trustees should be able to call the parties involved and settle this issue in finality.
I'm very happy that you immediately, because my next question to you was going to be who has the power to, you know, call the parties together and say, you know, this is for them to reconcile. But I'm just a little curious as to whether they've not gone beyond reconciliation. When you look at all that has transpired so far, and the fact that right now one of the major contenders is a minister, not just a minister of anywhere, minister of the Federal Capital Territory, serving in the government of the All Progressives Congress. Don't you think that too much has happened for any meaningful reconciliation to take place?
No, as long as we are all still members of the People's Democratic Party.
You accept his membership of the PDP?
Yes, why not? He's still a member of the PDP. He has not renounced his membership. He has not renounced his membership. And if I may say, with benefit of hindsight, it's not the first time that governments have formed cabinet across boards. President Obasanjo did it in 1999, where he brought members of ACN and APP into his government.
But he did that with the knowledge of their parties.
Yes, and
the permission of their parties.
Yes, I understand that the National Working Committee of PDP gave approval for this to happen. That was done.
They did?
Yes, they did that early in the days of the formation.
Why are some people then saying it's anti-party activity?
I think it is running from what happened after the presidential congress of the party last year. I think that bad blood is still running in both camps. So the divide has not closed. The divide has not closed. Otherwise, it is not a new thing that cabinets are formed across party lines in this country. It is supposed to promote unity. It is supposed to drive inclusiveness and all of that. But here, I think it is tearing us apart.
Because some people have also, you know, said that this is an act of indiscipline.
Yes.
And they think that, you know, the minister should be disciplined by the party.
I think it is a fallout from the presidential elections. It is a fallout from the positions that parties took before and during the presidential elections. That is why I said earlier that we have not been able to have a genuine reconciliation of the two parties post-presidential primaries. Once you are able to achieve that, all this will die out.
How is that going to be achievable, given that trust has been so irretrievably broken?
Yes, it is damaging to break trust. I agree that it's damaging to break trust. But in a political dispensation, where the interests of the party and the people you represent ought to be paramount, then parties should be aware that the people are more are the central focus, not their individual interests. So that's why I said earlier that the members of the Board of Trustees have a Herculean task in bringing these two people together and settling them so that there can be peace in the party.
One of the key bone of contention is the chairmanship seat.
Yes.
For which you are vying for.
Yes.
Now, you heard the spokesperson also say, Mr. Namago will continue till probably the neck because they want wider consultation. As a result of, the former chairman, EFCC, has said, okay, he's putting out his case in court. And so some people still think, no, Mr. Namago should not be. They should be gone since yesterday. And then that's on the one hand. Then, in addition to that, you also have different people who are saying that position should be maintained from where it came from, which is not Kogi State.
No, it's not about states, it's about the zones. The position of the national chairman was zoned to North Central.
Yeah.
Dr. Yachayu is from North Central. What the North Central team is saying is that that position, his tenure, the tenure remains to be served out, as it has happened in time past. That replacement should be done from North Central. Now, what the PDP governors have said, consequent to their meeting last night, was that because of the tension the palpable tension that everybody can feel in order to try to maintain unity in the party. There should be a little time given for wider consultation for a replacement to be made of Damagum. They are not saying that Damagum should not be replaced. I do not think that is what they are saying. If you listen,
no, he remains until
August.
Yes.
He said. Now, so there is a time frame for consultation and to calm down nerves in order to allow the North Central zone to produce a replacement for Dr. Oyechayo. We had a meeting yesterday, the caucus of North Central, and we reached a resolution that the North Central will ask at today's neck for the enforcement of the Constitution. That's it. Because this is a constitutional thing.
What part?
I think Section 46 or so.
Regarding the position of the chairmanship?
Says that where the chairman is resigns or is taken out of office, it should be replaced from the same zone to serve out that term. So all we are asking for is that allow us to serve out the term in North Central because that has been zoned to us.
So what will serving out the term mean in this case? Does it mean...
To the end of his tenure in 2025.
Yeah.
And we have precedents. It has happened in time past. It's not happening for the first time. When Bamanga Tukru resigned as the national chairman of PDP, he was replaced by somebody from the zone. When the former governor of Bauchi State also resigned, he was replaced by somebody from the zone. As a matter of fact, the matter has been contested in the courts. And the Supreme Court had given a decision that that was the proper thing to do. Where a man resigned from office based on our constitution, you should replace that officer from the zone where the office was zoned to. If you look at, we lost the national woman leader of PDP recently, and the South-South zone met and replaced her with somebody from the South-South. It didn't cause any rancor. When the zonal chairman of Southwest, who is a member of the NWC, died, he was replaced by somebody from the Southwest. This does not call for argument. It's not something happening for the first time.
There are a number of issues. I mean, first, I'd like to take you up on, I mean, I'm going to be asking a triple-barreled question right now, but you can take them in what order. One, I want to know what it is that you expect to see today as the meeting takes place. There are those who have written. I'm seeing this message here from Osita Chidoka, who is also a member of your party, who has said that there is a sense of urgency to deal with matters within the PDP. He's not saying very clearly what exactly must happen, but he says the party must put an end to its submission to filthy lucre and macabre dancing to the music of unprincipled pipers. It must return to the role of providing good governance to its states and principled opposition that Nigerians can trust. He says if this doesn't happen, the consequences will be dire. It's a matter of grave urgency to save the soul of the party that ushered and stabilized democracy in Nigeria. It comes actually with a subtle threat that if this doesn't happen today, he'll be one of those he'll be one of the pallbearers, so to speak. Yeah. So I'm just wondering, what do you expect to happen today?
Well, I expect that our party should firmly restate the position of our constitution and the readiness of the party to comply with it. The time frame becomes a different ball game, right? Because you cannot conduct an election today to replace, or a replacement. You cannot produce a replacement for Dr. Ayu today. So you have to set a time frame for it. But let the party come out clearly to tell us members that they are ready to obey the party constitution. From what you read out of Osita's write-up and message, I agree with him that, look, we need to begin to show that we are ready to obey our own rules. The major problem PDP has is the disobedience to our own rules. Disobedience to our own rules. That is what is causing all this crisis. If you and I are going into contest and the party that is an umpire provides ground rules for the contest. And we now get into the field, and I find out that no, the party is not following even the rule they have set, and they are now leaning towards one of us. It's going to cause bad blood. It's going to create enmity. It's going to become difficult to settle us after the contest. And that is what is destroying the party on a daily basis. I think that is what Osita is alluding to. And I agree with him to a great extent that we need to reaffirm to members, NEC needs to reaffirm to members that they are prepared to go by the rules of the party and ask North Central to replace Dr. Yachayi.
What's the significance of the court case which he withdrew, the appeal which he withdrew, that's Senator Yachayi, from the courts?
The significance is that he had accepted the decision of the High Court of Makurdi that removed him from office.
No,
or that affirmed his removal from office.
Yeah, so he's accepted it, but some people will say it's his right to appeal. He's withdrawn that appeal. Do you think it's to soften the ground for anything? Is it to make room for reconciliation? What bearing does it have with the meeting today?
My reading of it is that he's just being a peaceful party man who wishes the party well. He desires that the party will grow along constitutional order. He does not want to become the stumbling block, because some people were flagging his issue up as though Dr. Ayu still has a case in court, so there is no vacancy and all of that. So now he has been out of office for over a year. What is the point pursuing an appeal over time? Probably that you know the end result. So he had taken a gentleman's position by saying, look, I'm out of this. Let there be peace in the party.
Why do you think you should be the PDP chairman and not any other person, maybe former governor of Benue or anybody else?
Well, a lot of us are qualified to be PDP chairman. But I think I have specific issues that, if given the opportunity, I would like to address. And you know that the vision belongs to the visionary. So I have specific issues within the framework of our constitution that, if given the opportunity, I can put in place to remove this kind of difficulties, challenges we have during each cycle of election. Each time we have election, is that you have these challenges of imposition of people have been shortchanged, the rules have not been followed.
You want to stop imposition of candidates?
I will be able to put in place. I will be able to put in place a system that will enable the party to run without that happening.
Can you stop delegates from being influenced financially?
It is possible if you set up the proper framework. Because this happens when you begin to gather delegates. You say, oh, bring all the delegates to this room where Chamberlain is and get them to decide who should go to represent.
So if I disperse them, you can transfer things to the delegates.
No,
it's only by gathering delegates that happens.
The party has been run on an analog basis since.
You want to digitize it?
We want to digitize the party. We want to take the party back to the people. And once you introduce some of those new technologies into running the party, these issues will fizzle out. It might not be perfect, but
the party, it didn't work.
Pardon me?
I thought one former chairman tried that process.
No, they didn't.
The registration, digitizing the party.
It didn't work. It didn't even take off.
It didn't even take off. It didn't take off?
No, it didn't take off. The idea was there, but it didn't take off.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Mr. Abbott, there is an elephant in the room, so to speak. Looking at the pictures of the meeting that took place yesterday, it would seem like there is an elephant in the room. You stated it in your response to one of my questions earlier. But the issues that informed the differences in the build-up to the 2023 presidential election, they seem unresolved between some elements in the party, the two camps, so to speak, some elements in the party in support of the former vice president's intention or attempt to be president of Nigeria, and former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who is also minister of the EFCC today. How should, or how would you address that kind of issue given the opportunity? Because there are still frayed nerves.
Thank you. You know, I had said it earlier, and I want to repeat, that in all of human association, you are bound to have frictions. You are bound to have differences. And these differences might lead to frictions. But the ability for conflict resolution, proper conflict resolution, will help to free this nerve, to free this nerve from bursting. So what needs to be done is we have leaders, we have elders in the board of trustees, we have respectable leaders. We need to constitute honest men and women and get them to bring these people together and resolve it. In every of human establishment, conflict resolution is integral. Well, because you expect that there will be conflict along the line. Even in a family, in a nucleus family, where you have 10, a man had given birth to 10 children. You do not expect that all of them will agree on all fours on everything.
Well, Mr. Abba, it's been a very, very...
It is the role of the father to...
Yes, just a second. Huh? It's been a very costly, very, very costly conflict unresolved for the PDP, particularly in the last election, given all of the build-up that happened. And this particular conversation that you are having with us now, the issues that you are raising, that the elders ought to have done something. We know, everyone knows how it went or didn't go. So what is new that should be done that has not been done? Because we understand that there were attempts at the time to intervene. What should be different now? They sat in the same room yesterday trying to hold a meeting. And of course, so how do we make progress with this kind of situation when PDP is supposed to be the leading opposition party in the country?
What should be done differently is the people who were managing the party, let me take you back, after the presidential primaries, the people who were managing the parties, who noticeably became part of the problem, were also the people who tried to resolve the problem. And that could not have produced a positive result. Because if I know that you worked against me in a primary, you worked for one of the candidates in the primary, and you turn around to want to now settle us, how do you think I will accept your intervention as being genuine? We have people who are not on either side. And that's why I keep talking about elders in the board of trustees. We have people who are not on either side, who have not been involved in the settlement of this matter. And I think they have a large role to play, and they have the capacity to call these two people to order and bring sanity back to the party, so that this party can assume its legitimate role, in its real role of being the largest party in this country. This
what
party
is also
the largest party in this country.
Yeah, what's also interesting, Mr. Abba, is it's not only in this case that there were differences. In the build-up to the 2023 general elections, there were all kinds of divisions, particularly in the People's Democratic Party, since that's what we are talking about right now. And there are those who say even the fallout of the 2023 elections in several other areas haven't really settled. So the lack of that conflict resolution may also be seen being displayed right now in Rivers State with the former governor and the incumbent governor. Is it time for the PDP at the national level to intervene? Because it would seem like there's been silence over time.
You are correct. The fallout came out from the presidential primaries, and it has been snowballing from one event to the other. Giving you the current example you gave in Rivers, yes, our leaders at the top level, are leaders who are not involved in any side of the on either side of the dispute, ought to come in to resolve these issues. It is time for the people at national level to intervene in rivers and bring sanity back to the party in that state. The sad thing that is happening in PDP is that there's, you are gradually having people building camps and holding on to them fastidiously. They are building camps and taking ownership of the party instead of allowing the people who originally owned the party to own the party. If we do not stop this, if we do not take the party back to the people, if we do not change the ways we are doing things, if we do not reinvent PDP, the party will just collapse. I'm afraid to say. If we continue the way we are going, the party will be in deep crisis more, and it will not help us. So I use this opportunity to ask the elders, especially those of them in the Board of Trustees who are not on either side of this conflict, to step in and call people to order, and call a spade a spade.
So what is a spade? What is a spade in this case?
Discipline must be brought back into the party. It's a way of calling a spade a spade. Discipline must be brought back into the party. If you see that I have not obeyed the constitution of this party, if you see that what I'm doing is contra the rules and regulations of the party, there should be somebody who should be able to look at me and say, look, Humphrey, what you are doing is offending our party constitution. You should stop it or we'll discipline you. We must have the capacity to do that. The party has since lost that ability. I must tell you, the party has since lost that ability to discipline its erring members. And that is part of the challenge that PDP has.
All right, Mr. Humphrey Abba is the chairmanship aspirant for the People's Democratic Party. He's also a former Minister of Trade and Investment, former Minister of Interior, former Minister of Police Affairs, and a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so
much. All right, so that is the show today. We'll do thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Assault. Goodbye. Thank you. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Have a great day.
And have a wonderful day ahead for you. I'm Ayo Makinde.